We are live at PN Lawyers Facebook Live Fridays. I am Tasso Pardalis, and today's topic, false PPP, Paycheck Protection Program applications, and SBA scams. It is no secret that the government is giving out very attractive loans to qualifying businesses in the middle of this pandemic. And it is no secret that there are businesses who are taking advantage of this. One of today's Facebook Friday topics that I plan to cover is why it is a bad idea for business owners to fudge applications for these loans. I'll start off today with a scenario. There is a club in South Jersey, and they have a bunch of waiters and bartenders working there. COVID-19 hits, and the owners immediately shut down the business, and they tell the staff to go collect unemployment. This is now before the business is ordered closed by the state. The owners then hear about these loans, and they immediately get to fill out the applications. They list all of their employees as working, but they are not working. The club is approved for the loan, and their business account is funded. The owners of the club now have a small fortune in their account, but it's not being used for payroll. They start calling their employees, telling them that they are to return to work, but they are not to come full-time. They will get paid for 20 hours. And if they don't return to work immediately, they will probably not be rehired when the pandemic is over. Did the Jersey Shore Club owners break the law? Everyone lying on the loan applications is a crime. You will be prosecuted. About a month and a half ago, on March 19th, the Department of Justice ordered every U.S. attorney's office in the country to appoint a coronavirus fraud coordinator. They have assigned special teams of prosecutors in every state to address this specific kind of wrongdoing. And you can bet your PPP money, New York State is gearing up to recover money that was obtained by lying and misinformation on applications. To get technical for a second, we have all heard at least the mention of the CARES Act. The CARES Act was enacted to provide immediate assistance to businesses affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. Under the CARES Act, eligible small businesses can obtain loans under a temporary loan program called the Paycheck Protection Program, or what everyone knows as the PPP. The PPP is a forgivable loan program to help eligible borrowers affected by the pandemic keep their employees on payroll. The loan can be forgiven if at least 75% of the proceeds are used for payroll expenses, which banks and borrowers are expected to verify. The applications clearly state, quote, "I understand that if the funds are knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, the federal government may hold me legally liable, such as for charges of fraud." What are the penalties? The application states that knowingly making a false statement on the application is punishable by 1. A maximum of 5 years imprisonment and or a $250,000 fine under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 for making false statements, and under 18 U.S.C. 3571, which is the sentence of the fine. 2. 2 years imprisonment and or $5,000 fine under 15 U.S.C. Section 645, false statements to the SBA. And 3, ready? 30 years imprisonment and or a $1 million fine if the false statement is submitted to a federally insured institution. So basically, what is a federally insured institution? Basically, any bank under 18 U.S.C. Section 1014, false statements to banks with respect to loans. And we're not done. And false statements in a PPP application may also subject violators to up to 20 years imprisonment and a $250,000 fine for wire fraud under 18 U.S.C. Section 1343, and up to 30 years imprisonment for mail fraud. So, as you can see, this is not something you guys want to play around with, especially those of you in the hospitality business who don't know exactly when your employees are coming back to work or if they will. It is thus so important that businesses understand just how bad it can get. So Guys, as of yesterday, at least 1.6 million PPP loans have been approved. How many of those loans were approved because of false information provided by business owners? Rhetorical question. There's even a specific fraud statute, 18 U.S.C. section 1340, that deals with fraud associated with major disasters or emergency benefits. So under 1340, it is a crime to knowingly make a material false statement in any matter involving benefits paid in connection with a major disaster declaration. This statute includes people who falsify numbers on applications to benefit them or somebody else. So even for those of you filling out applications on behalf of a company, you are on the hook also. What if the business owner had good intention? I'll give you a scenario, true story, okay? A business owner gets questioned by law enforcement on the false number of employees in their application. The owner explains that they were just trying to stay afloat so that they could rehire everyone. It just didn't pan out. It may have been well-intentioned, but by falsifying information on the loan application, you can bet it will lead to an arrest and a charge of violating the federal fraud statutes that we discussed earlier. And I'm not even talking about the New York state laws. That's just the federal charges. So let me give you another example. A small restaurant's operating in Queens for many years. But because of the quarantine, they have to shut down and the owner has no way to pay his bills. The heartbroken owner does not want to close his business after so many years, and they don't want to file for bankruptcy. The owner believes their only option is to obtain a PPP loan to get them by until New York opens. But, the owner doesn't meet the eligibility requirements of the application. So, the owner goes and falsifies the details on the loan application to make sure that they get approved. They use fake employee names, they inflate the profit and loss statements and the expense reports, and they doctor the payroll. There is really no way out for the owner of that business. The government is going to prosecute hard on these crimes. And I'm not sure that a jury is going to be sympathetic with someone who is taking what should have gone to a company that was eligible. We see day in and day out, federal judges and juries, they're very keen on setting examples. Don't be that example. Do not be that example. Here's another situation. A store has 5 20% owners. One of the questions on the application asks for information about the owner's past involvement with the criminal justice system. The application fails to mention that one of the owners was convicted of a felony many years ago. Is the application fraudulent? Well, yes. If certain criminal history is present, the entire business is not eligible for a PPP loan. Now, all of the owners are exposed to being prosecuted. The lesson there, do the due diligence. Otherwise, at a minimum, you're looking at paying hefty attorney's fees for the criminal defense and the possibility of jail. One more example. Lying about the size of the company, lying about being under 500 employees. PPP applicants must qualify as eligible under Section 3 of the Small Business Act. Businesses have to be cautious when calculating their number of employees, especially when they're certifying that there are independent contractors, eligible self-employed individuals, or sole proprietors, or that they employ no more than 500 people. So keeping in mind the total employee calculation is the average number of people employed for each pay period over the last year. So it's not just how many employees you currently have. It's the average number over the last 12 months, okay? And an employee must be included in this number regardless of the number of hours you worked or whether they were on temporary status, okay? So that's another tricky area where people could get caught up in the application. Here's another one. One of the easiest sections of the PPP application to get yourself into serious trouble with. Applicants must certify that the current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support ongoing operations. Guys, don't claim you are losing everything if you are not. We had companies that stated in their applications that they have lost a fortune since the quarantine order went into effect. Yet, the tax reports for the same months from the last 2 years show income for a fraction of the amount claimed. So if your tax returns don't match, don't claim certain numbers and be careful with what you're claiming versus what you're making. I mean, look, this is going to sound silly, but We've even had people include cash income lost in the application when they hadn't reported any cash income for the last 2 years. I mean, that's like an automatic red flag. Finally, one more scenario. I was walking down the street and noticed two suits inspecting a restaurant. I mean, I'm wearing a suit, but the other types of suits. I was walking down the street and I noticed two suits inspecting a restaurant that had a cash only sign outside. The suits were taking notes and pictures. Maybe they were having problems with their systems inside, or maybe they were preparing to show business interruption. But look, those cash only signs, they are a badge of fraud. Okay. Think of it as where there's smoke, there's fire. If there is truly a technical problem in your business that prevents electronic transactions or credit card transactions, you better document it and hold on to that proof very closely in this situation. Okay. So the point of all, fudging your numbers on those PPP applications is just bad on so many levels. So do your best to make sure that doesn't happen. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to get to being careful about becoming the victims of fraud as opposed to being the perpetrators of fraud. Okay. So because of the high volume and the overload of applications that were filed, processing by the SBA and by your banks, I'm sure everybody's dealing with it, has come to a grinding halt, opening up a cottage industry of phony lenders. So one small business that we deal with recently received a call from an SBA loan program representative who claimed to be calling from the SBA. The representative informed the business owner that the SBA loan program was working with their bank. They urged the owner to apply immediately because the PPP program had limited funds that would run out. A second representative then followed up with the business owner by email, claiming, "We are the SBAloanprogram.com as mandated by the SBA. Getting approved is easier than ever." Sounds great, right? The SBA loan program scam lures consumers through the website SBAloanprogram.com. The SBAloanprogram.com site immediately triggers a pop-up screen that states in large bold font, CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program. Right below that, another pop-up has presented itself that says, "We are a direct lender for the PPP loan program." Sounds even better. They even further represent the Paycheck Protection Program is being processed through lenders across the country participating in this program. No fee, no collateral, no personal guarantee, fixed 1% interest rate for 2 years, and the SBA guarantee fee is waived. Apply now. Amazing, right? What struggling business owner can't resist? But this loan company is a complete fake. After the owner signs and gets funded, they figure out that they have a high interest, unforgivable loan. That's it. I'm here to take some questions for people who have never dealt with the SBA, and let's assume they've gotten their PPP properly and without any misrepresentation slash false statements. What modifications or enhancements should they make to keep their record keeping to make sure their loan is forgiven? I've recommended to people that they open a special account directly for the PPP money to be funded, and then that they use only that account and only that money for their payroll and their rent and their electric and all of that. So that they will be able to show the paper trail or the electronic trail of the money coming from the SBA or from their bank into this special account that they've opened, and then that money going directly to payroll, or to rent and utilities and the other approved expenses, and then keeping perfect documentation of that. And we recommend to our clients that they use Springbank for all their PPP applications. And Springbank is very good about keeping the account open and operating only for purposes of the use of the PPP money and helping people document all of that as well. What if employees don't want to come back or not comfortable coming back? This is one of those gray areas, but look, it's clear that you must use the PPP money for employees that are working. For those of you in the hospitality industry like Alexi, you're not allowed to reopen yet, and there's no clear guidance on using PPP money if your restaurant's not open. And so you have to be very careful. But if an employee is refusing to come back, I think you can document that and hold on to that documentation, and that's the best you can do right now. But using PPP money and not having employees is a very, very dangerous game at this juncture. Okay. Instead of falsifying to obtain the PPP, are there any other options for small businesses that do not qualify but need aid? There are regular loans, SBA loans, which are not forgivable and can be paid back. There are grants from private companies. Facebook has its own grants. Alice has its own grants. There are many, many other grant options. If you ask a manager to come back and they refuse, can you fill their position? The answer is yes. Can the landlord enforce on the personal guarantees under a lease while a business is closed? And the answer is that right now there is a moratorium on both residential and commercial evictions. Although the courts are slowly opening back up, we just got word last night that we will be able to file new cases next week, but everything is extremely slowed down. So I don't think anybody's enforcing anything anytime soon. What we've been recommending to people, both guarantors and landlords, is temporary deferment agreements. That way you guys can come to terms. Landlords and commercial tenants can come to terms. We've been recommending 30 days, and that, you know, the rent be deferred for those 30 days for now, and that it be agreed that that be paid over some longer period of time once things get back to normal and spread out into the lease. Can Greek churches get help for their schools? The answer is that you can apply as a nonprofit for PPP and for loans. Nonprofits can apply. And I believe the Archdiocese of America yesterday announced a $16 million grant for people that are hurting, that are members as well. What about for entertainers, where we are our own boss? Entertainers and people who are sole proprietors or work for themselves, real estate brokers, for example. It depends on how you claim your income every year, whether you do that through a corp or whether you do that as a sole proprietor or as a 1099. But as a 1099, you can also apply for PPP individually. Are any parts of the PPP loan forgiven? Yes, the entire PPP loan can be forgiven if 75% of it is used for payroll and 25% for non-payroll expenses, rent, utilities, etc. And also if you don't reduce your staff by more than 25%. So the answer is yes. Even for 1099s, PPP can be forgiven. But can you apply with different banks, more than one for PPP? As far as we know right now, no, you cannot, Dimitra. You can withdraw if you've applied. You know, like a lot of people went to Chase and to Citi, and you know, you've been seeing the news reports about what happened there. So a lot of those people withdrew and then went and applied through normal banks like Spring or like their local banks. And but you cannot apply through more than one. It's only one because it's all going to the same place. If a medical practice has closed and decides to reopen, are employees obligated to go back to work or potentially lose their job, even if they're concerned about safety issues? The answer is they are obligated to go to work. Okay. However, if somebody is sick or has health issues, that's a different circumstance. Okay. But they can be replaced. There is no job protection for people that must return to work. Thanks, you guys. I'm signing off. Have a great weekend. I hope everybody's safe and healthy. Thanks for joining us again.